Okay, so today I will be going over how to perform the curl up test, the push up test, and the balance test. The first test I'll be going over is how to do the curl up test. So what you would want to do for your students is set up the two pieces of tape on a mat. I don't have a mat, so I'll be doing it on my rug right here. I have the pieces of tape set up. So what you would do is you would have your student lay flat on their back on the mat, right, with their knees bent at about a 90-degree angle, and you want their arms at their sides, right, so that their palms are facing down on the ground, right, and that their middle finger on each of their hands is touching the piece of that first piece of tape, right. So the second piece of tape, right, this one right here, is placed 10 centimeters in front of the other piece of tape. Okay, so after you have the mat set up, right, you have the pieces of tape on it, and your student is laying down flat on their back with their knees at their 90-degree angle, their hands on the floor with their middle fingers touching a piece of tape. You want to have them start doing that range of motion, right? So it's not a full sit-up, right? These aren't full sit-ups. They're partial curl-ups, right? That's why they're called curl-ups, not sit-ups, right? So the goal is to lift your shoulder blades so that your trunk makes a 30-degree angle. I'll show you a minute, in a minute right here, down on the rug, right? So you want your shoulder blades to come up, and you want them to you want your body to make a 30-degree angle with the mat, right? So if I was the teacher, I would tell my students, right, to perform as many curl ups without pausing for that 1 minute, right? I think they can do up to a maximum of 25 in 1 minute. That would be the best score you can get, right? So what you want to make sure, of course, that your students get a warm up probably first before all of these tests, right? The push up test, the curl up test, the balance test. You want to stretch out and make sure that your students are loose and that they're ready to go, right? We don't want anyone hurting themselves or not being able to perform to their best potential, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my heels, right, at the second piece of tape, and I'm going to lay down flat and put my fingers on this piece of tape and do as many curl-ups as I can in a minute. Right, so here we go. All right, so I got 22. I stopped at 22. You would obviously have somebody else here. I don't have anybody else home helping me right now. Right, so this is just me doing my test on my own. If we were in a school setting, right, where you would have a partner there or a teacher would be watching, right, with the timer and making sure that the students' feet don't come up and that when they go back down that their shoulder blades are touching the ground, right, and that they're pausing a little. They're not pausing, but they're hitting the ground and they're going back up continuously, and they're not stopping, right? They're not taking a break. So the next test we're going to go over is the push-up test, right? So back up a little bit here. With the males, right, with the male students, you want them to start in that down position, using their toes as their pivotal point, right? So that they can balance on that ground, right? So you'd be using your toes behind you. The hands are shoulder width apart, right, on the ground, right? Your back is straight the whole time and your head is up. With the female students, they use the modified knee push-up. if they want, right? So if they want, they can use the knee push-up position. Also with their hands shoulder width apart, right? Their back is still straight. Your back's always straight the whole time when doing push-ups. Just except the difference is their legs are together and their lower legs are touching the mat, right? And their ankles are flexed a little bit together, right? So what you do is you want to have the student raise their body, right, off the ground by straightening their arms, right, while their arms are still shoulder width apart, right, and then they return to their starting position after they straighten their arms, right? When you go down, right, you straighten your arms and you go down. You want that shin to be almost, if not touching the mat, almost touching the mat, right? But you want your stomach and your chest to stay off the mat, right? You want that chin down, right, and that head up. So you don't want your stomach to touch the mat at any time, right? So you want to tell the men and the women that they must be straight at all times and they must push up into a straight arm position, right? So you want to, once they're doing that, you count the maximum number of push-ups that can be performed without rest, right? Continuously in a row. So you stop the test when the student can't maintain their good form anymore, or they stop, or they just can't continue, right? So I'll give you some right now for demonstration. I could probably do about 40, I'd say, continuously, right? All right, so that was a quick 20, right? We'll stop there. That'll be my score. My score would be 20 push-ups there. Right, so my curl-ups, I had 22. My push-ups, I had 20. Right, so those are the first two tests. The last test that we're gonna go over is the balance test. Right. So let me fix this a little bit. So with the balance test, what you would want to do is, this is performed with your head straight, right? Both eyes open, and your hands are on your hips, right? Your hands will be right here, standing up. So the student must stand unassisted on one leg, and is timed in seconds from the time they pick up their foot off the floor. Once they pick up their foot off the floor, the timer starts, and it stops when their foot touches the ground or their standing leg or an arm leaves the hip, right? So if this goes down, or if I move my arms or something like that, the time is done, right? So the students that are unable to do it for at least 5 seconds are considered at a risk. A major risk, right, for injuring themselves playing sports or just on the regular, right? So you want to do it. I'll do it for about a minute here, right? So your hands go on your hips, pick your leg up, and it helps to stare in one spot, right? So you can concentrate. Right, it might be smarter to do it on your dominant leg, right? So my eyes are open, my head is straight, my hands are at my hip, my leg is flexed, my right leg is flexed. All right, so I'm going to go for about another 20 seconds here. All right, it's getting a little harder now. All right, and now my foot hits the ground, that would be the end of the timer, right? So that is how you perform the push-up test, the curl-up test, and the balance test.